Hello. Today, I will take you on a journey that transforms humanity's perception of itself. We will explore together the adventure of mirrors, beginning with gleaming stones, shaping through polished metals, and finally perfected with glass. A mirror is not just a surface reflecting our face. It is also a crucial milestone in the development of science, art, and thought. Let us now discover together the truth behind the mirror. What is a mirror? A reflection or a miracle? Today we gather to examine an object that seems like an ordinary household item, but is one of the most mysterious and multi-layered artifacts in human history. The mirror. At first glance, a mirror is merely a surface. We look at a piece of glass, and it gives us an image in return. This image is often familiar, sometimes the face of someone freshly awakened, sometimes a serious gaze preparing for an important meeting. Yet, what we see in the mirror is not only our physical self. On that surface, we perceive traces of the past, expectations for the future, and our present emotions. A mirror is not merely a plane that reflects light. It is also a gateway where thought, imagination, and perception are mirrored. It shows us ourselves, but never exactly as we are. The mirror imitates reality while simultaneously shaping it, reversing left and right, subtly deceiving and provoking thought with each glance. Thus, a mirror is not only a physical tool, but a symbol. For scientists, it represents the behavior of light. For artists, aesthetics. For psychologists, the self. And for philosophers, the distinction between reality and appearance. So, we must ask, is a mirror merely a reflection, or is it one of humanity's oldest miracles in understanding itself? The science of reflection. The journey of light and mirror. Technology. Have you ever wondered, when you look into a mirror, what are you really looking at? Yourself, or the millennia-long journey of light? A mirror is one of the simplest visible wonders. Nothing seems to happen when we peer into it. Yet, on that silent surface, an extraordinary physical dance occurs, starring one of the universe's most mysterious players. Light. Light emerges from a source, travels through space, hits the mirror, and returns at the exact same angle. Physics calls this the law of reflection. But we should see it not just as a rule, but as a miracle. Through this simple motion, humanity, for the first time, could see itself from the outside. This allowed not only the recognition of form, but gradually the discovery of identity. Modern mirrors are far more complex than they appear. A thin layer of reflective metal, usually silver or aluminum, is placed behind transparent glass. This layer reflects most of the light, producing a sharp image. The reflected light reaches our eyes, is processed by the brain, and transforms into a meaningful image. Yet, remember, this image does not physically exist. We cannot touch or reach it. Every time we look into a mirror, we are looking at something that is not truly there. a reflection that seems real but is ultimately intangible. This paradox elevates the mirror from a mere physical object to an existential one. The mirror has never been just a piece of glass. It is a silent storyteller that presents our form using the ordinary rules of the universe. Reflection. And though it speaks no words, it says a great deal. The first mirrors in history. From stone to glass. For a moment, forget the modern world filled with mirrors, handheld mirrors, bathroom mirrors, skyscraper facades, even smartphone screens. Let us go back to the moment when humanity first encountered its own reflection. We do not know exactly when the first mirror appeared, but we can make educated guesses. Perhaps it began when a child noticed itself by a calm lake after a rain. The history of mirrors is that old and profoundly human. Archaeological excavations show that humans around 8,000 years ago polished obsidian, a volcanic glass, to produce mirror-like surfaces. These first mirrors were used in what is now eastern Turkey, parts of the Middle East, and South America. Yet their purpose was not merely visual. Mirrors were considered sacred, used in ceremonies and divination. Later, in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, people used polished copper and bronze surfaces as mirrors. These were usually round and mounted on special handles. Their use was not only aesthetic, but also a marker of social status. Owning a mirror could symbolize wealth, power, or even a connection to the gods. The Romans advanced mirror-making technology, creating brighter metals, smoother surfaces, and clearer reflections. The real revolution, however, came when glass was used in mirror production. Around the 15th century, Venice became a hub where mirrors were redefined. Artisans on Murano Island applied thin silver layers to the back of glass, creating the first modern mirrors. These mirrors were so valuable that artisans were forbidden to leave the island, protecting their secrets. A mirror had become not just a necessity, but a symbol of power and prestige. From this point, mirrors adorned royal palaces and the homes of nobles and the wealthy. Yet what reflected remained the same: humanity's encounter with itself. Today, mirrors may seem cheap and ubiquitous, but for centuries they were symbols of luxury, magic, status, and mystery, always turning humans back toward themselves, asking the oldest question: who am I? Mythological and religious reflections. Mirrors as symbols. Throughout history, mirrors have been more than physical objects. They have carried symbols, beliefs, fears, and desires. Humanity has not only looked at mirrors, but has imbued them with meaning, told stories, and even considered them sacred. In ancient Greek mythology, perhaps the most famous tale is the tragedy of Narcissus. Narcissus was a young man famed for his beauty. This beauty clung to him like a curse. One day, he saw his reflection in a pool of water and fell in love with it. But he could not realize that he loved only his own image. He reached, could not touch, waited. found no response and eventually dissolved into the spell of his reflection. In this story, the mirror symbolizes self-obsession, introspection, and eventual destruction. The eye that admires beauty ultimately meets its own ruin. Another striking example is Perseus confronting Medusa. Anyone who looks directly at Medusa turns to stone. Perseus, to overcome this curse, used a shield, a mirror of sorts, to view her reflection. Here, the mirror is not only reflective, but also protective and strategic. Seeing reality indirectly can save one when direct observation is dangerous. In Eastern mythologies, similar themes exist. Japan's sacred mirror, Yata no Kagami, belongs to the goddess Amaterasu and symbolizes honesty, insight, and divine wisdom. This mirror, part of Japan's imperial treasures, is far more than a physical object. It is the face of truth. In medieval Europe, mirrors were believed to possess magical properties. They could capture spirits, allow demons to pass through, so mirrors were covered at night. There was also a tradition of covering all mirrors in a house after a death to prevent the spirit from being trapped inside. Interestingly, in many cultures, mirrors were considered both sacred and ominous. They were seen as tools for communicating with gods, but breaking one was thought to bring 7 years of bad luck. Perhaps this duality arises because mirrors always show two things: the seen and the hidden. In mythology and religious symbolism, mirrors represent not only self-recognition, but also self-fear. A mirror reflects not just the form, but the truth, unfiltered, which can sometimes be too intense to face. Mirrors in psychology, self-perception, and confrontation. A mirror shows not only our physical image, but also our psychological existence. What we see is more than a face, body, or posture. Every time we look into a mirror, we confront our perception. This confrontation is rarely easy or impartial. In child development, mirrors play a crucial role in self-awareness. Around the age of 2, a child begins to understand that the reflection in the mirror belongs to them. This is called the mirror stage in psychology. It marks the threshold where a person begins to say, I, recognizing themselves as a separate entity. Here, the mirror is not merely an object, but a tool of awareness. Mirrors are also tests for adults. Sometimes we do not see ourselves as we truly are. Our perception, shaped by experience, trauma, and expectations, alters the image. We may feel confident or disappointed, meet a smile or a stern gaze. Mirrors are intimately connected to body perception. In today's world, with increasing aesthetic concerns, mirrors have become evaluation boards. For individuals with body dysmorphia, a mirror can feel like an adversary. The difference between appearance and perception can deeply disturb mental equilibrium. Yet mirrors can also be therapeutic. In some psychotherapy techniques, individuals speak to themselves while looking in the mirror. This fosters internal dialogue, self-acceptance, and reconciliation with the past. Looking in a mirror connects not only to the outer surface, but to the inner world. Perhaps most importantly, every glance shows not just the present self, but past versions and future possibilities. Thus, every mirror glance is a question directed at oneself. Who am I now? And who do I wish to be? Mirrors in art. Between reality and illusion. Art constantly walks the fine line between reflecting reality and challenging it. Here, mirrors become not just objects, but powerful metaphors for reconstructing, distorting, and questioning reality. A mirror both reveals and conceals, illuminates and distorts. This is precisely what art does. In painting, especially during the Baroque period, mirror scenes served not only as compositional elements, but also as a bridge between viewer and artwork. Diego Velázquez's Las Meninas exemplifies this brilliantly. In the background, a mirror reflects the king and queen. As the viewer tries to interpret this reflection, the line between reality and representation blurs. The mirror here is not just an image, but the gaze itself. In literature, mirrors symbolize identity crises, inner division, and the tension between reality and imagination. Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, while seemingly a children's book, suggests that another world might exist on the other side of the mirror. A world where logic is reversed, time bends, and objects speak. The mirror is a gateway from the ordinary to the extraordinary. In cinema, mirrors reflect a character's inner world. In Alfred Hitchcock's films, mirrors depict dual personalities, repressed emotions, and guilt. In Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, mirrors highlight mental unraveling, temporal loops, and spatial distortion. In a scene, a character looks into a mirror and sees not just themselves, but the ghosts of the past and the dark side of the subconscious. In performance art, large mirrors on stage show both the character and the audience simultaneously, making the audience think, feel uneasy, and question. In art, a mirror is never just a mirror. It makes the unseen visible, distorts the visible, and builds a fine bridge between reality and illusion. And it always asks us, mirrors in science, from microscope to space telescope. Mirrors in science are not only tools for reflection, but keys that make knowledge itself possible. Thanks to mirrors, things too small or too distant for the human eye become visible. In other words, mirrors do not merely reflect, they reveal. Concave mirrors in microscopes focus light to expose invisible worlds, cells, bacteria, microscopic structures. These discoveries, crucial for understanding life, were made possible by mirrors. These mirrors reflect light at precise angles, producing sharp, high-contrast images, allowing scientists not just to observe, but to intervene. On the other hand, telescopes pointing toward the sky also rely on mirrors. Gigantic mirror systems enable us to see stars, galaxies, supernovae, essentially the depths of the universe. The Hubble Space Telescope, orbiting kilometers above Earth, functions like a giant eye. At its center is a perfectly polished primary mirror that collects, focuses, and transforms light into meaningful images. The next-generation James Webb Space Telescope, with its gold-coated honeycomb mirrors, captures light from the universe's birth. This telescope is not only a scientific achievement, but also a testament to humanity's curiosity about light and trust in mirrors. Mirrors play intriguing roles in quantum physics, too. Experiments on whether light behaves as particles or waves are directly influenced by mirror placement and angles. Thus, mirrors here are not only observational tools, but integral parts of experiments. In some quantum experiments, the probability of a particle reflecting can change its reality. Mirrors do not just show, they act. Medical laser systems, surgical robots, optical sensors, and fiber optic networks all rely on precise mirror systems. Unnoticed, mirrors form the heartbeat of modern life. In conclusion, science uses mirrors not just to see, but to understand, measure, transform, and imagine. A mirror is a converter, a transformer, not merely a reflector. Scientists look at this silent object to glimpse the universe's deepest secrets. Mirrors in philosophy: reality or simulation? Mirrors resonate not only in the physical world, but also in thought. For philosophy, a mirror raises the question, is it a representation of reality or a distorted copy? When we look in a mirror, we see an image, clear, familiar, seemingly identical, but it is not truly us. Our right hand appears on the left. Our left side appears on the right. The mirror resembles us, but does not replicate us exactly. This subtle shift points to a profound philosophical question. How can we be certain what we see is real? Ancient philosophers saw mirrors as shadows of truth. Recall Plato's allegory of the cave. Humans watch shadows cast on a wall, mistaking them for reality. True reality exists outside, illuminated by light. In this context, mirrors resemble shadows. They reflect, not reveal, reality itself. Modern thinkers take a different view. French philosopher Jean Baudrillard saw mirrors as metaphors for simulation. According to him, modern humans live with copies of reality, not reality itself. Much like a mirror, we interact with an image we cannot touch but believe to exist. Thus, mirrors blur the line between reality and fiction. In a sense, a mirror presents us as we appear, not as we are. It shows not who we are, but who we wish or are forced to be. The gap between the self and its projected image is here highlighted. Sociologist Irving Goffman argued that daily life is a stage. When looking in a mirror, we often see the mask we wear on that stage. We may like it, want to change it, or fear it. Ultimately, the mirror offers only an image, and images do not always convey truth. Philosophically, the mirror is not just a reflector, but also a trap. It reflects expectation, illusion, and desire. Hence, the deepest philosophical question remains: does what we see in the mirror belong to us, or to what we wish to see? Conclusion: the mirror and humanity, more than a surface. A mirror. Once, it was only a surface. It seemed a simple object made of glass, metal, or stone. But now we know that a mirror does more than reflect. It provokes thought, questions, and confronts us. In this journey, we examined the physics of light, mythological stories, child development, art, scientific discoveries, and philosophical questions. At every step, one truth remained. The mirror is humanity's oldest, most honest, and perhaps quietest witness in the quest for self-understanding. Every time we look into a mirror, we see not just a face. We see the past, doubt, hope, and the potential for change. Sometimes we look boldly. Sometimes we avert our gaze. Yet, whatever the case, that surface tells us, here you are, as you think you are, and as you wish to be. Perhaps this is why mirrors are both magical and intimidating. Mirrors do not deceive, but reality itself can be challenging, and humanity has always kept looking, despite the difficulty, at ourselves, others, and the universe. Because to see is to seek understanding, and understanding is one of the most ancient impulses of being human. Ultimately, a mirror is not just an object. It is the light humanity holds up to itself. It seems a surface, but is actually a window into a profound void. On the other side of that window, there is only us, our present selves, and the selves we could become. Today, we traced not just an object, but the history of humanity. The mirror, beyond being a simple reflective surface, shaped the progress of science, the aesthetics of art, and humanity's understanding of itself. It guided not only our eyes, but our thoughts. And who knows, perhaps in the future, mirrors will show us not only our faces, but the deepest reflections of our minds as well.